This episode of Lobbing Scorchers is sponsored by Full Pull Wines, a Seattle-based seller. Not only are they a local company, but they've been supporting independent Seattle soccer media since 2011 and are run by Sounders fans. They offer the best boutique wines in the world to members of their mailing list with special focus on their home, the Pacific Northwest. Their model is simple. 1, they email compelling offers. 2, you request bottles that sound appealing. 3, your wine arrives at their Soto warehouse and is ready for pickup or shipping. Their Soto tasting room is also open to the public. If you're interested in joining their mailing list or learning more about them, visit fullpullwines.com. What's going on, everybody? Welcome to episode 56 of Lobbing Scorchers. This is Ari Lillianwall. I've got producer Noah here with me. And Noah, we don't just have an L-Pod today. We have an emphatic L-Pod. How are you feeling?
I'm feeling very disillusioned, Ari, and we will get into that more later, but oh my lord.
We'll get into the
smoked.
We'll get into the disillusionment. You know, an L-Pod is always unfortunate, especially after the run of dub pods that we had recently. But you know, I don't necessarily mind an L-Pod. I find them to be quite cathartic. So we're gonna still lay down a good show for you tonight, even in spite of that debacle that we all witnessed at Lumen Field. First of all, apologies for the late release of this episode. Our timeline got a little pushed back. I was out of town. We had to get a line when I got back. So we are recording this on Tuesday when we would normally do it on Monday. So appreciate the patience and you all bearing with us on that. We're going to do our game review of the Seattle Sounders' 3-1 Leagues Cup defeat to Club Nexaca at Lumen Field, which did not eliminate the Sounders from the competition. But I would say it's fair to say that it went about as disastrously as it possibly could have, with them still advancing on multiple fronts. So we're going to talk about that. We're going to preview the knockout stage match against the LA Galaxy, who are coming to Lumen Field on Thursday.
Random day to be playing.
I know the schedule for this tournament. I'm like, usually I have a rhythm of match nights that I'm working for the website where it's Wednesday, Saturday, and I can kind of, but with Leagues Cup, I was working the games last night on a Monday. I've had Thursdays. This is going to be a Thursday. There's been some Tuesdays thrown in there. It's kind of all over the place. But yeah, the Sounders and the Galaxy are going to be playing on Thursday. We'll hit our agenda check. I wrote down a few for those. A lot of them are diminished this week, unfortunately, but we're still going to get into it. And then there's a lot of other group stage results before this knockout round going on in Leagues Cup, so we're going to cover those as well. And then hit some transfer news from around MLS and talk about all the big-time signings that the Seattle Sounders are making, which is none right now. So before we get into all that, though, I wanted to let you all know, Lobbing Scorchers is a part of the Sounder at Heart podcast network. If you want to get the best independent Seattle soccer coverage, consider supporting us by going to sounderatheart.com/LS. That's sounderatheart.com/LS. Scroll down to subscribe and support to get 30 days completely free. Every sign up through our link helps support and grow this show. And as we have been known to do from time to time and are going to start doing again regularly until we can't anymore, I'm going to read off all our supporters' names and thank you all for signing up and for giving us the support you do. We love and appreciate all you guys. Kenneth Wade, Joey Pasquinelli, David McCoy, Owen Mason, Dan Pavato, Samuel Fout, Ian Mitchell, Christopher Smith, Norm Bontier, Thomas Martin, Greg Hoker, Chris Maley, Andy Hill, Mike Latini, Nate Bontier, David Rodriguez, my nephews, CJ Miles and Marinakis, Mark Ottinger, Zach Heckman, David Pope, Brian Morton, and Clara Berger. Thank you all so much. We really appreciate it.
Sounderatheart.com/LS.
Sounderatheart.com/LS. We're at like 23 subs right now. The next goal is 25. I know for a fact, there's 2 of you out there listening that will go to sounderatheart.com/LS and help us out. And as always, if you're listening to this and you have not done so yet, please subscribe to the Lobbing Scorchers YouTube. The drive to 350 subs on YouTube is alive and well. We're at 320 when I got back from out of town. We had been at like 308 or something, and we've been stacking. But please help us on the drive to 350 as we try and grow and expand our presence on YouTube. All right, let's get into this. L-Pod, and we'll start as always with our lineup reaction. Pretty rotated for this game, which is what I advocated for and predicted would happen going into this. You had RBW in there for Nuhu. You had Danny Leyva with Obed in the double pivot, so no JP in the starting 11 for this game. And you had Moose up top and Andy T in goal. And then all of Nuhu, JP, Jordan, Paul Rothrock, which, that's your secret weapon, who you have to rest the further you go in this tournament, your most important player, and Leo Chu all subbed on later. So it was kind of like a rotated starting 11, and then you got more of the starting group coming in the second half. And, funnily enough, this game actually got off to about as good a start as possible. It feels like that's happened a few times this year, where they get off to like a great start and it looks amazing and they're playing great, free-flowing, repeatable offense. They get an early goal and then they just tank themselves. I could probably think of at least 2 or 3 other times that's happened this year, so that's an unfortunate trend. But Obed Vargas, great goal, just 8 minutes into the game. What was great about this sequence, I think, was it was good to see the brothers rolled on combination on the right side create a high percentage chance like that. That was the bread and butter of this attack as recently as last year, and that has not really, I feel like, been the case as much this year. But they did great work. The brothers rolled on to set up that chance for Obed. It was a perfectly weighted assist by Christian. Obed runs onto it, and a great finish. He was wide open, but it was a pretty tough angle, and he stuffed it. So the Obed stock continues to skyrocket, and we're going to talk about that in the agenda check. But great start to the game. That's the best start that you could hope for.
And they were dominating. It wasn't just that goal. They were pounding.
All over him. But tragedy struck just 3 minutes after that. And this is really, this is where it all torpedoed about as much as it possibly could have.
Yeah.
I believe it was either in the 10th or 11th minute, so just after the goal, when Pedro de la Vega, who we've talked about a lot this season, about how him breaking out and being a dynamic and productive and creative member of this attack is the most important factor in this team reaching whatever trophy contending ceiling it might have. And we haven't been able to see it because he's been injured all season. He's finally worked his way back to fitness. And 10 or 11 minutes into this game, he scored an absolutely insane goal. This was one of the crazier shots that a Sounders players hit all season. The Rui Diaz one in Philly was up there, and there have been a couple other good ones. Rusnak's had a couple good free kicks. But
this was pure wizardry.
This was wizardry. Just the angle he hit that from and the bend he put on it. I don't know if that's what he was trying to do or if he was trying to just, send in a cross and wreak havoc. But I'm going to choose that was just fully planned by De La Vega, and he hit that on purpose. But either way, to convert that shot from that angle from outside the box, the degree of difficulty on that one is incredibly high. And it was really just great to see, because I felt like watching him, he's had this kind of stuff in his bag. He just hasn't been able to play consistently enough to generate the chemistry he needs with the players around him, and then also just to gain the fitness and sharpness that he needs to do this stuff on a regular basis. So to see him hit that shot, you're kind of feeling like, wow, okay, he's here. He's on the score sheet. That's going to be good for his confidence. He looks fit. He's super stoked to score. This is great. They're up 2-0 on their Liga MX competition in the group stage. Awesome. What a start to this game. And unfortunately, the Vibes, which were previously immaculate, got chalked instantaneously.
They hit him with a Obed giveth, Obed taketh away.
Yeah, so the Pedro de la Vega Golazo was waved off for an offside. Was it on Obed?
It was on Obed.
I really didn't watch the replay of the infraction. I saw the goal, but
would you like me to describe it to you in most eloquent terms?
Give the people a breakdown of why this goal was waved off.
So Obed acknowledges that he's offside, and he clearly doesn't play the ball. He kind of just moves out of the way of it and just runs and dummies over the ball in a sense, tries to just stay out of the way. He had made a run previously, and I can't even remember. I think it might have been Christian or Alex who made a pass to Obed's space area, and he was offside, came back onside, tried to avoid the ball best he could, kind of maybe inhibited the defender with a little bit of a collision, and Pedro was able to swoop the ball, take it inside, and that's when he ripped off this gnarly curl of a shot. It's a tough but fair ruling, I think, personally. I think that if Obed hadn't actually like physically gotten in front of the defender, that it would probably be fine, but he did kind of impede his movement to the ball, which Pedro was able to exploit and cut in. Jeremiah disagreed with me, but that's my take.
Yeah, it seemed like the consensus was that it was people could see where the logic was, but it felt kind of tough and harsh, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
I would have to really get in the weeds and watch it again to have an informed opinion on that. And frankly, I don't really care enough to do that. The outcome was the outcome. And the vibes were further tanked from there about 20 minutes later when Pedro de la Vega subbed off with yet another injury. It's a groin this time, so it's been hamstrings all season. Now it's a groin injury. And, you know, these muscle injuries, you're usually talking about a few weeks every time it happens, because, you know, it has to heal and then you have to get it back to fitness, and it has to be in a way where it's not going to recur, which, like a groin especially, as much if not more than a hamstring, there's a lot of risk that either one of those are going to reoccur. That's why groins and hamstrings are really tricky. So for him to have another one of these that's independent of the muscle injuries that he's already had, not great.
Is this dude drinking water?
Yeah, I don't know what's going on. We're going to talk about it in my takeaways here in a second, but it really it just added to how chalked the vibes were after the great start and the Obed goal. And really, Seattle just pretty much completely self-destructed from there. They got bammed on 3 times in a row without scoring another goal, and they are limping into this knockout round match against the Galaxy, who are one of the best teams in MLS this year, on the heels of a really just terrible result, losing a player that they really need to make a run in this competition. Any notion of them winning this tournament, or frankly MLS Cup, I think it was predicated on the idea that De La Vega could get healthy and contribute. So if that's not the case, I mean, folks, it's the idea of this team contending for trophies with the roster in this state, with De La Vega sidelined and not contributing at all. It's a stretch to me.
Even Open Cup?
I mean, I guess they're so close to the Open Cup final at this point that in 2 individual games, anything can happen. Right now, like, you're at a point in this tournament where there's still such a long way to go. And the later you get into it, you're going to be playing some really high quality opposition, whether it's the upper tier MLS teams or the upper tier Liga MX teams. I'm not saying it can't be done. It's just the path is harder to imagine.
Yeah. And with Open Cup, you have to play LAFC, which we already saw how that turned out.
It's a good point.
We already saw how that turned out.
Yeah, exactly. So I don't know, not to be a downer, but that's just kind of how I see it. I'm going to do my rapid fire takeaways, and then you can tell me what you think of these. And then we'll get into the agenda check. My number one takeaway is that I think with the De La Vega stuff, we've unfortunately reached the point here where you kind of got to consider just shutting him down for the season, don't you? Like, yeah. It feels like right now, you know, I'm not a doctor. I have no medical knowledge. So if the medical staff and the coaches evaluate it and they feel like there's still a chance that this can heal and they can get him back to fitness and he can play this year, then great, they should do that. But just based on what I have seen this year, it seems like his body is not capable right now of ramping itself up to withstand the demands of being able to play professional soccer without sustaining muscle injuries. So with that being the case, now that this is like the 3rd or 4th time that this has happened, I don't know how much you gain by kind of spinning your tires like this. Like, I almost feel like you might be better served to just call it a season with this and give him a full off season to heal and get fit, and then give it a rip next year when he's got more of just a baseline of health and fitness than constantly rehabbing and then re-injuring himself. So, you know, if they can get him healthy and contributing down the stretch for maybe the last part of the regular season, and then maybe hopefully get a playoff boost from him, I'm not saying not to do that if you think it's possible. I just don't know if that's possible. This has happened every time they've tried to play him this year.
Thank you for listening to the Sounder at Heart Podcast Network, which now includes No Sarietes, Lobbing, Scorchers, and the Cooler Guild. We've been independent since August of 2023, but need your support to make sure it continues. Although this podcast is free, it's only made possible by your continued support. Memberships start as low as $25 a year, which not only helps make podcasts like this one happen, but also gets you access to everything we produce. If you're able to support us at higher levels, starting at $75 a year, you gain access to a host of other perks, most notably entry into our members-only Discord, where the smartest, funniest, and most engaged commenters share their thoughts and ideas. To find out more, just visit sounderatheart.com and click the subscribe button in the top right corner. Thanks for listening.
Yeah, hindsight is 2020, obviously. Like, we can't go back in time, but you were advocating for this quite a long time ago. I wish they would have just put him on the season-ending injury list. That takes his salary off the books, correct?
I'm actually not sure about that, but
let's just play a hypothetical here, and maybe we're completely wrong. But let's say that does that. Maybe it doesn't. Maybe I'm just an idiot. But think about how that could have opened up more space for the summer window to make a move, and adds you more flexibility. Again, hindsight is 2020. That literally may not even be a league rule, so I'm just bullshitting here. But
I get why they have been trying to, rehab him and ramp it up and play him to this point. I just think after the fourth time, man, like I
don't understand.
I could just be
24.
I could be speaking out of just frustration from having watched the same thing happen a bunch of times, but like I don't know. It's just something I was thinking about.
Yeah. He's 24. He should be like, I think that there's a bigger issue too with just the fact that this is continuing to happen and now it's just different muscles. And on top of that, he isn't match fit and he's still not match fit.
Right.
And he can't get match fit.
You can only play him like 30 or 40 minutes at a time right now. They had ramped him up past that. But it's really, honestly, more than anything, it's just really unfortunate. And I feel really bad for him because, you could tell early on in the season it was taking a toll on him mentally. He had like family come out here to try and get his mind in a little better place. And you definitely feel for the kid. It's been it's been a lost first season here in Seattle. And it just felt so cruel, but also on the nose to have that happen again right after he scored a goal like that. I know it didn't count, but kind of just to see like, okay, that's the sort of like impact play that he has in him. And for him to get another injury like 20 minutes later, it's just so unfortunate.
Someone said he was edging us. And I said, I don't think you can say that on Twitter.
This was Seattle's second straight home game where they gave up 3 goals and pretty much got clowned on. So that's not great. It's not the vibe you want. They did advance. I guess not second straight home game because they had the Minnesota United one, but there was the
2 and 3.
The second time in 3. So that's not good for the vibes. And we're going to talk about this in the Galaxy preview, but my last takeaway was, I hate this matchup with the Galaxy right now. No one should feel good about this, and we'll tell you why in our match preview, but that was sort of where my mind went.
Yeah, I'm excited to see Joey Paints. That's it.
Yeah, I'm always excited to watch
just to see him.
And Gabriel Peck's honestly like emerged as pretty much just as good. So they're definitely a fun team to watch, except when they're destroying your team, which
correct.
Might happen. It might happen. All right, let's hit this agenda check. I have 4 written down. We can make this pretty quick because I feel like they're pretty simple. Obed was the one who strengthened his agenda, which he continues to do, but that was a really sick goal.
Mm-hmm.
Like the finish on that one, just seeing him get on the score sheet again. There's one player who managed to up his stock in a debacle of a game like this, I would say it was him.
Yeah, that's kind of what we've been looking at with him. It seems like no matter how dark the game is or how bad of a spot that the team is in, Obed is still constantly improving, and he's just this bright spot. He played a great game all around. I don't even think I would. It clearly wasn't his fault that they lost, but man, it's like crazy to see him improve. And dude, like I know we keep saying we're gonna hate to see him leave, but I mean, his value just has to be by the week increasing to like absurd amounts.
Absolutely, and I think that's a good way to think of it. Is like every time he makes a play like that, the price goes up.
Yesterday's price is not today's price.
Exactly. We had the RBW over Nuhu agenda. I hate to say it, but pretty diminished. There was a lot of takes flying around. Okay, there's a lot of takes flying around. I don't really think I was as much a part of that. I'm on record as not being as anti-Nuhu as some of the brigade out there, and a lot of people don't like that. A lot of people disagree with me on that. But I thought this was a pretty rough one for RBW. He is 19, so let's keep that in mind. And growing pains with a young player like that. Every young player, there's going to be moments like that. But correct me if I'm wrong, but on at least two of the goals, RBW was pretty involved on the sequence that led up to it. Am I wrong?
You're not wrong. And as a purveyor of this agenda, I feel quite embarrassed. This was not a good showing for our boy here. But again, like you said, he's 19. There are going to be hiccups and goosebumps. You have to let kids play and learn their position. But it was not a good look for him.
I think my takeaway from watching those sequences was just that he's still very toolsy. He's got a lot of really great traits, and I love his upside, like we've talked about, as an attacking fullback or just a winger. And I think he's got all the skills to be very effective in that role and become a very sought after player for an overseas transfer and all that. I still believe all that. I think his 1v1 defending is a work in progress. That's probably the biggest part of his game that he needs to develop. At least if the plan is to have him be a fullback, that's the part of his game that he's going to have to work on and develop a little more to really maximize what he can do at that position. And then otherwise, I think you might be maybe better served to play him higher up the field, like we've talked about this year, where maybe that two-way skill set isn't as important. But to play that position, really the ideal modern fullback is a two-way player, and so if your defending is lax, that does not lend itself well to playing that position. So I definitely not bagging on RBW. This is a pro RBW podcast, yeah. And I think he's shown enough this year that anyone who is still excited about his upside is well within their rights to do so, to feel that way. I know I'm still pretty excited and intrigued by his upside, but this week, agenda diminished.
I think also the specific RBW over Nuhu agenda is diminished, but I think in a weird way, the RBW playing higher up the field agenda is
two different agendas.
Increased.
Yeah.
They play off each other.
Good point. Yeah, those are two different agendas. We'll do the Moose one real quick. Diminished again.
He's bad. he is genuinely bad. I'm gonna just take this one over for a second here because I have to let this out. I watch him play and it genuinely frustrates me. I don't know what he's doing. I don't know what his position is, because when he's at the 9, he's not playing the 9. He's just getting in the way, or he's fumbling a pass. He's getting a great pass in, and he's like, "Let me take the world's largest touch and then fumble the ball." This guy is bad.
Well, at least with Aber, it was almost more frustrating to watch in a way, because he was getting in great spots and had these wide open high percentage chances, and then he would just miss them or blammo them off the post as hard as he possibly could, which that was frustrating in its own way. But
he was creating high percentage chances, though.
Yeah, he was getting in those spots and just not finishing. Whereas it doesn't feel like when Moose has gotten his run this year, he had the one goal right? Early in the year. And remember, we were like vibing on, we were like, yes.
That was when
Hebert
Jordan
era,
and Raul were like just garbage, like stinky mode. And we were like, all right, activate Moose.
Oh God, no one go back and listen to the episodes where we advocated for like starting Moose over Jordan. And I probably said that at some point because he had scored a goal and he was looking.
He was the hot hand.
He was the hot hand. And he scored like a pretty big goal in that San Jose game, which they eventually lost. But, I defend our advocacy for that agenda in hindsight, because at the time it felt like he was the best option. But it is what's unfortunate about it is it's been a kind of a bust of a year for Moose. And I thought, much like the Hebert signing, I thought the reasoning and the process made sense. You had a bit of an undervalued asset in the sense that Moose, his underlying numbers and his like goals and assists per 90 were very, very good. He just had never been in a situation where he had gotten enough minutes to like have the stat sheet production that reflected that. But I think the process of finding a backup 9 who has that really good goals and assists per 90 and is shown to be an efficient player in the minutes that he has gotten, that makes sense in principle, but it has not really worked out this year. And it's essentially like another Hebert. That's what's going on here. So.
I'm gonna put this out there, and you know what? Maybe I'll be proven wrong, but I genuinely think Hebert is a better player than Moose. Because if you look at what he's doing in China right now, Hebert's kind of balling low key.
Yeah, which that's its whole separate topic. He went to I don't know if it's still happening, but he went to China and just started banging in goals
he was banging,
again.
Like good goals too.
Yeah. He had a free kick.
Yeah,
Galazzo.
It was like insane. It was so good.
It was like he's taking set pieces for them.
Yeah,
and he's bamming. Which that honestly that pissed me off in a way, but and Hebert was also really good on NYCFC. So
yeah. I like for all the memes about Hebert, I was never like actively like I hate you, and I'm not actively I hate you about Moose either. I'm just like I watch him play and I'm just angry. And I think that I was more with Hebert. I was more just like frustrated because I
was amazed by Hebert.
Yeah, it was like it was
like a sight to behold.
Yeah, yeah, it was like it shouldn't have. It literally reveled all statistical probability.
It set off an entire like 4 months of XG discourse. By its one player.
One player single-handedly validated all of my feelings about XG.
I don't even harbor any negative feelings about his tenure on the team. I
kind of love him now.
Yeah, because of the novelty.
Yeah,
of I've never. I mean, I guess it's just happened with Seattle before, because before Hebert there was Nelson Valdez,
legend,
who it was the exact same thing where he had all these really good high percentage chances, and honestly, Hebert was more recent, so it might feel worse, but I think Nelson Valdez was even more snake bit.
Yeah.
We're kind of getting on like a tangent here, but I'm kind of into it because we're going down memory lane. But because the Nelson Valdez one was funny. That was a good bit because he just started balling in the playoffs and scoring a bunch of goals, and they won MLS Cup.
Yep.
So his tenure turned out to be validated, but it is an interesting trend, I guess. Nelson Valdez wasn't a backup 9. He was like brought in to be the starter.
Mm-hmm.
So that was a little different in that way too. But I don't know if there's anything to that. But when you throw in that one, the Hebert one, and now the Moose one, it's definitely three of the stranger number 9 situations that I've seen. All right, last agenda check. I have the Pedro de la Vega as the savior one, which obviously
eradicated.
It's diminished and on the precipice of being eradicated.
Oh, you're not ready to declare it dead yet.
Well, okay, there's still a theoretical possibility.
My man is on hopium.
I'm not saying that I expect it to happen. I'm just saying that with the amount of games they have left between the rest of Leagues Cup, the stretch run of the season, and the playoffs, it's not like a medical impossibility that a groin injury could heal, he could get back fit, and he can contribute. I think there's a very small percentage likelihood, based on what I've seen this season, that that's going to happen. But I'm not going to, until there's so few games left that like the injury would totally devoid the possibility of him playing. It is possible that he could come back.
Yeah. And
but
Ari,
I mean, I just said earlier that like it might be time to consider shutting him down. So that's just a decision the team and the medical staff are going to have to make. We don't know as of this recording the seriousness of the injury, but I mean, for now, the agenda is unfortunately diminished once again.
I mean, I know a savior that once rose from the dead and, saved every single person. His name was Jesus Christ.
I mean, if Pedro de la Vega comes back and leads the Sounders to League's Cup title and then an MLS Cup double, it would be a comparable accomplishment.
I think so, yeah. That's basically as cool as moving a rock or whatever. I don't know.
Did you have any other agenda checks? Those were the only.
No,
four that
I think
wrote
that's good enough.
Let's hit this Galaxy preview. I'm always down to talk about the Galaxy.
Are they your second favorite team?
Yeah, well, at least to watch.
Yeah.
And I mean, I've been beating this drum all year. I rate them, at least in attack, about as highly as any team in the league. And I exclude Inter Miami with the Barca boys from any of these discussions. So if you take them out of the equation, I mean, I'm telling you guys, this offense is, when it gets going, it is a buzzsaw like any of the best teams in the league that you could name. I think their attack is just as good as LAFC's, frankly. I think it's pretty much as good as the Columbus Crew, who are the other kind of buzzsaw type team that you could put in this discussion, I think. FC Cincinnati sort of has those qualities sometimes, but not as consistently, and they're also ravaged by injuries right now. So I think the best points of comparison, I think, when we're talking about the best attacks in the league right now are Inter Miami, LAFC, and Columbus. And this Galaxy attack is nasty. I want everyone who watches this game on Thursday, like, I just want you to pay attention to how they play offense compared to how Seattle has played offense for a lot of this year, save for the one electric stretch where I started talking about Jordan Morris and Albert Rusnak as the best like duo of all time or whatever. Mm-hmm. But like when you watch the Galaxy play offense, first of all, their execution in transition, their how clinical they are in front of goal, but then like just also kind of like the speed that they play with, and also kind of the patterns that they run, the chemistry they have. They always know where each other are going to be, whether it's Ricky Puig pulling the strings to get it to Peck and Joey Paints, or Peck hitting Joey Paints with a cross, or Joey Paints hitting Peck with a cross. And then Joveljic is hurt right now and they're still balling. But when you have Joveljic in there, you have one of the better like poacher number 9s in front of goal in the league. The way a team like this plays offense is kind of, that's what you ideally aspire to be. And Seattle had that stretch, which, arguably turned out to be attributable to a soft schedule. But like they had that stretch where Rusnak was really cooking, and they were bamming in multiple goals every single game. And I wouldn't say they were quite as buzzsaw as some of the teams I've been talking about, but there was at least glimpses of that type of quality, that type of offense. The Galaxy play like that pretty much every game. And I mean, their entire front four when Joveljic is healthy is really nasty. And everyone knows how much I love Joey Paints, but honestly, Ricky Puig is really the engine for it all. I think for my money, he's the best facilitator in the league right now. His through balls, his switches, just everything. I mean, this guy he's Barcelona made, he's the real deal. The fact that he came over here when he was 22 is pretty cool. But he's a fantastic player to watch. This whole offense is fantastic to watch. And all that's to say, like I said, I hate this matchup for Seattle. I'm not really a big prediction guy. We don't really do predictions all that often on this show. But if I had to make a prediction for this game, I'm taking the LA Galaxy all day. I don't really care if they're on the road. That, maybe that affects something and gives Seattle more of an advantage than I'm giving credit for. But we saw, this is a very similar offense to what LAFC runs out, and we saw what happened with that. So I don't expect it to go all that differently.
Yeah, I mean, what we just saw with ostensibly even, in the second half of that last game, with the majority of the starters in, including Paul Rothrock, the greatest player to ever touch grass, like they got cooked by a team that is ostensibly 10 times worse than the Galaxy. Like Nexaca they had that great 10 or whatever. He ripped that shot from outside the box, but like other than that, like they fell apart. And now you have JP potentially having a concussion. You have Pedro de la Vega potentially dead. And yeah, I don't know. The vibes are bad. I don't know, man. I would hate to be the Sounders going into this game, especially with the Galaxy, who have been just cooking as of lately. And like I said, man, I got tickets simply so that I can go see Ricky Puig and gang, because and you know what, I'm probably gonna get some hate online for that, but they're a fun team to watch.
Yeah, no, they're my favorite team in the league to watch. So I mean, I guess it'll be entertaining from that perspective, but it's just it's definitely an unfortunately time matchup for the Sounders coming off that game. That all that being said, I'm willing to be proven wrong on all that. I believe when these two teams played earlier this year, it was pretty competitive in LA. It was 1-0 Galaxy, if I'm not mistaken. So if Seattle's defense is up to the challenge, and really, I think the key when you're playing a team like this, and specifically this team, is you just really, if at all possible, you want to muck the game up and prevent them from getting out and running and cooking in transition, that's playing into their hands. That's when they are at their best, and their execution in those situations is ruthless. And I actually, thinking back on it now that I'm remembering, Seattle did a pretty good job of that the first time these two teams played. Nuhu did a really good job on Joey Paints in that game. I remember that. And just in general, Seattle's back line, the CBs and both fullbacks, they were able to stop LA from getting into the gear that they're capable of getting to. So if they can replicate that, and get the Rusnak and Morris duo cooking the other direction, results not impossible.
Yeah.
In an elimination game, though, I think LA is going to be flying, and they have a gear that Seattle doesn't have right now, and LAFC has that same gear, and they played it to great effect the last time Seattle played a team like this. So it's not impossible, but I don't have my hopes especially high, I guess.
Yeah, and it's even more tough when like your game plan ostensibly has to be slow the game down, play possessive, and be smart with the ball.
Exactly.
Against a counterattacking team that, again, can score 4 goals in 10 minutes.
Yeah.
And you're a team who has been able to show that the only time you can really score like that is against bots. Well, the Galaxy do like giving up goals.
I was just going to say.
But it's going to be a battle of, like, catch up, or are the Sounders going to panic if they go down? Like, that is, like, mentally, at least, in my opinion, I would side with the Galaxy all day, just based on tactics and how you have to kind of play this.
Yeah, that is the one thing I will say as well, is that the Galaxy's defense, which has been famously one of the worst in MLS for the past 3 or 4 years, has been much better this year. And that's a big part of the reason why they're so much further up the table than they usually are, is that they've managed to combine this buzzsaw high-powered offense with a competent defense. But I'm telling you, they still show these glimpses of their old selves. They can't quite change who they are. They still are prone to giving up really bad, really ill-timed goals, in much a similar way that the Sounders have done, frankly, at points this season, and honestly dating back to last season. But the Galaxy defense, they do that less.
Yeah.
But they still do that. So that is why, honestly, as good as they are on offense, every single game that you play against them, you do have at least a slight chance because of their propensity to at times melt down on defense, which I would say there's probably a higher chance that they're going to melt down on defense like that on the road than if you had to play there. So that's another potential avenue for Seattle to have a chance at winning this game. But I mean, it's just when they're on their game, they're tough to stop, man. It's like a snowball rolling down a hill. Yeah, Ricky Puig is disgusting.
Disgusting. Nasty.
Okay. Let's whip around some other Leagues Cup results, and then we'll hit a couple of other news items, and then get on out of here. Does that sound good, Noah?
Let's do it.
Okay. One funny thing that happened in the group stage is that CF Monterrey got grouped, and they fired their coach, which CF Monterrey, I'm pretty sure about this. If anyone out there has a different stat on it, correct me if I'm wrong. But they have the most expensive roster, I believe, out of anyone in either league. They have the most money behind their roster of anyone in this tournament, and got grouped.
Maybe not Inter Miami, but
I mean, I don't know. We'd have to look that up. They might be more expensive than Inter Miami too, but either way, they're among the highest spending teams competing and got grouped and fired their coach. And I think my takeaway from that is that, we were debating on the last show how much the Liga MX teams cared about this tournament. I think that kind of shows that they are taking it seriously to some extent if getting grouped results in a coach firing. I'm sure there's more context to it from that. And but the Liga MX teams are not that far into their season to where I would think that firing a coach would be on the table. So I don't know. Maybe they care more about it than we were giving credit for. But also, I just think it's funny that that happened because they were a team that I think a lot. I mean, I picked them to go really far when I filled out my bracket, obviously. So surprise result and a coach firing. The Galaxy, who we just talked about, they knocked out Chivas. So that was also...
Wait, LAFC isn't in the tournament anymore? They're out?
LAFC is out?
Yeah, they're out. Chivas.
Oh, Chivas.
I didn't know that they didn't promote this El Tráfico very well.
I see the joke now. I was like, I don't think so. I'm pretty sure they're not. Chivas de Guadalajara knocked out by the LA Galaxy on penalties. So that was another good result for MLS. I would say that the trend we were talking about of MLS teams dominating has evened out a little bit. And I think the Liga MX teams, one factor we didn't talk about on the last show that I've seen brought up that I think actually might be a contributing factor is the fact that these teams are very early in their season, and you're not really we always talk about when MLS teams are in Champions Cup, they have that same disadvantage where they're just starting their season and getting fitness and playing against teams that are mid-season. That's sort of the situation that the Liga MX teams are in with this tournament. And I do think, having watched enough Champions Cup in my life to say that does have an effect. And I think that's a reason to think that as we get further into the tournament and they're able to get more reps, more games in, and get more fit, you're probably going to see the results even out quite a bit. That's my prediction. Last night I was covering the games, and there was a couple good ones.
Oh, this one was good.
FC Cincinnati scored 4 goals in about 10 minutes on NYCFC, who were up 2-0 at the time. And this was a fun little novelty because, did you see this? All 4 Cincy goals were scored by subs.
Yeah.
Pat Noonan,
he
freaking cooked. That's got to be the greatest high as a coach. You make 4 subs and they all score to win you the game in a 10-minute span. He's probably just been flying high ever since that game ended. I watched his post-game interview, and I don't know if it had fully hit him yet how hard he cooked on that. But that will probably never happen to him again in his career. He's got to savor that one. But it was also a pretty catastrophic meltdown by NYCFC, who they were right on the precipice of taking a big win against Cincy at TQL.
Yeah, one of my favorite parts of this game was New York City FC tweeted they don't stand a chance with a photo of one of their new striker signing. I don't even know his name. When they were up 2-0, and then they proceeded to not stand a chance themselves.
That's tough.
And lost.
I hadn't seen that tweet.
Yeah.
That's always tough.
That's a tough scene. I can't lie.
The Colorado Rapids game against Club Leon was really good. It was 1-0, and it was kind of popping off late. It was one of those situations where Club Leon was kind of hanging on to a lead for dear life, and the Rapids were really chasing the equalizer. 97th minute, literally like last play of the game, right before it ended, the Rapids get the equalizer. It was Keegan Rosenberry to Rafael Navarro to tie it. And then Zach Steffen, who has taken a lot of criticism this year. He was a big-time signing, at least name value-wise, for the Rapids, that had not really been performing up to the level of his the last time he was in MLS, when he won defender or goalkeeper of the year and then got transferred to Manchester City and loaned out a bunch of times. But he really hadn't been living up to what they thought they were getting when they made that signing. But he was a beast in this shootout. The game-winning save that he made, it's pretty rare that you see this. The guy hit it to Zach Steffen's left, and he laid out to save it and like caught it. Like, it didn't deflect. He saved
sick.
it so good that he literally caught it. So the Rapids, they got smoked 4-0 by the Timbers in their last game. Didn't have Georgi Mihailovic for that game. They do have him back now. So the Rapids they're an interesting little squad. Like, honestly, as much as the Zach Steffen signing has underwhelmed, the Georgi Mihailovic one is arguably one of the like top 2 or 3 best signings any team made, and I don't even think that's an exaggeration. Like, they built their whole thing is built around him, and he's just been like racking up stats, and they have a pretty inconsistent offense, I would say, but it's like when it looks good, it looks pretty damn good, and Georgi Mihailovic is a big reason for that.
At least they have some kind of ambition too with signings and stuff.
I mean, their fan base would
well, I think it's fair to say that in the past, but I mean, signing Zach Steffen and Georgie shows some kind of. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I'm wrong.
No, I think with how, at least with the Georgie signing, with how it's worked out, like, it looks like that in hindsight. But like at the time, I saw that they signed Georgie. I was like, okay, that's like a pretty good signing, but I don't know if that's like he's like an elite number 10 in the league. Yeah. And I guess he had been for he's a Chicago Fire homegrown, and then when he went to CF Montreal is when he broke out, and he was honestly performing like an elite number 10 for them when they transferred him to the Eredivisie. But I wouldn't have picked that as like necessarily a big needle moving signing, but it really has been for them, and they're just much improved. And honestly, like Chris Armas is sort of dunking on the haters with how they're playing this year, including myself. Like, Chris Armas was almost, he became a meme coach when he was coaching Toronto. Everyone was clowning on him. Their fan base like hates him. And when the Rapids hired him, it was widely panned, I think, like, if you remember.
Yeah.
And he's got them playing pretty good ball. All right. I got a few other little headlines here, and then we'll call it a wrap for episode 56. I did want to claim validation on my take about our Olympic squad, which we advanced to the knockout stage for the first time since 2000, I think, and then promptly got absolutely waxed by Morocco, which... Morocco they're really good. I mean, I didn't know their U23s were that good, but they made a run in the last World Cup, like I think to like the Final Four. Like they were almost in it. They almost made the final, I'm pretty sure. But like our team did not stand a chance against them. Wasn't even close. When we played France, the only 2 teams we beat, right, were Guinea and what was the
New Zealand.
So
who?
I just, a few people disagreed with me, which is fine, about my takes on that roster. But I mean, I feel like it pretty much worked out how I thought it would. That roster was not good.
No,
it was not good. Like, I could, I've watched enough of the league and a lot of these players that were on the roster to have an informed opinion on that. And as soon as I saw it, I was like, okay, this is going to be bad. And, to be fair, I will give them credit for advancing to the knockout stage and getting the wins that they did against the opponents when they were overmatched. I will say they did like a little better maybe than I thought we would. But with how it ended, I think we can safely say that team was weak at best.
Yeah. And the women's national team is in the gold medal match.
Yeah. Good shout.
Shout out to them.
Yeah. We usually win those.
We better. I hope we win those.
LAFC has Olivier Giroud has arrived. He's training with them. I was actually on Steve Cherundolo's Zoom call today, and he said that he's not going to debut in this game. They play tomorrow, I believe, Wednesday. He said he's not going to be ready for that, but he might be ready for the next game. They're just getting him fit, and they're going to unleash him. So that's going to make them way better. They've been running like Kai Kamara out there a lot, who's like really
still scoring, dude. Like he's still a beast.
Like it's kind of I'm kind of happy for Kai Kamara that he like gets to play on that team because he's played for like half the teams in the league at this point. And there's been times on some of them where he doesn't have a heck of a lot around him and he's still banging in goals. But like on this LAFC offense, like he gets a lot of high percentage chances, which Kai Kamara has been converting for like 20 years.
Yeah.
So I bet he's probably having as much fun as he's had in his career. Playing on that team with how good they are in attack and the kind of chances he's getting. But like, I mean, there are levels to this. Like Olivier Giroud, even at 37, is a huge upgrade over 39-year-old Kai Kamara. And they have Denis Bouanga, the evil, demonic, goal-scoring force of nature spawned directly from the gates of hell. And now you're throwing Giroud in there. So, I mean, guys, I fully expect this guy to be banging in goal after goal after goal.
At Starfire.
He's that would be sick.
God, I need Giroud at Starfire. Like that would, I wouldn't even care how the match would turn out. Just like how fucking
the novelty
funny
that would be a good novelty
Yeah.
if he did that. But I mean, it's just like, you know, the rich get richer, and I mean, he's one of the best. He's the leading goal scorer in the history of the French national team. So now that they're integrating him naturally, they're also signing Griezmann, who's
they're in talks, rumors.
They're in
talks.
talks. Yeah, they're in talks. But like, I think it's a situation where he and Giroud are boys, and it's sort of like an Inter Miami thing where they're bringing in his buddy, who's also. I mean, he's another one of the better attacking players of recent times. Folks,
yep.
Like that's the type of level of player that we're talking about here. And he's only 33. I was looking it up. Giroud's 37 and he's still really damn good. But Griezmann's like earlier in his 30s, and the two of them together, you know, they played together a lot with France. Like this is going to be bad. This is going to be bad for everyone else in the West and the league, frankly. Like, because LAFC's already so loaded. You have Bogus having the season of his absolute life, and you have Bouanga, who's an evil demon spawned from the gates of hell. So you add these two French guys to it. This is not good. This is not good.
I'm so upset, Ari. I'm in the mud. I'm in the mud mostly because of the next thing that we're going to talk about.
Yeah.
Because how, man? Come on, share some with the rest of us. Like, we're, not to be whiny about it, but I'm gonna be.
Yeah, that's
like
fine.
this
Okay,
is like
so that's
this is
that's
just
a good segue, and then I'll let you cook on your grievances. So the Sounders had a transfer rumor to Albert Elise, who's a Honduran attacker. And he might be a familiar name to some MLS diehards. He played for the Houston Dynamo a few years ago. And I remember him actually because he was on Club Olympia of Honduras when Seattle played them in Champions League in like 2015 or something. And do you remember this?
Yeah.
Like Seattle was heavily favored in that series and he just went nutty.
He went sicko mode.
He went sicko mode at Lumen Field, which was then CenturyLink. And I was just like, that was the first time I heard of him was watching him live at Lumen, and he was dominating the game. And I was like, who is this guy? Like some MLS team has got to swoop in here. And eventually it was Houston, and he had a couple of really good years for Houston, very productive player. But then he got transferred to Portugal, I believe, and then I never really heard much from him again after he left MLS. But he is a provenly productive, good MLS player. But now the Sounders are linked to him, but apparently he was in a coma, which I didn't really know about. I don't know what happened. But according to the reporting that I've seen, I think Jeremiah had some stuff on this. That's sort of been a hang up with the potential transfer. And like, it seems like there would be legitimate interest there, I guess. if he was fully healthy and like cleared to play, which he's not right now. And honestly, like if the health thing wasn't a factor and it was just we were judging him as a player and based on his track record in his career, I would be kind of down with that signing. Like he's been a good MLS player, and his skill set is something I think that Seattle could use with what he brings as a wide attacker. But it is just like I mean, I'm sure you're going to hit on this to an extent, but like even if Elise was healthy, like the contrast between what LAFC is doing and signing Griezmann and Giroud, I mean, it's a stark contrast.
And yeah, to be clear about the Elise transfer, they had initially investigated and had talks, but kind of decided against it, from what it seems. So it seems very, 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 very unlikely that they would sign him. Mainly because he hasn't played soccer in 6 months and he had a head injury and was put into a coma. And I had a tweet poking fun at this, like, oh, LAFC signed one of the best French players of all time and are now in talks to sign another one of the best French players of all time. And we are in conversation to sign a dude who was in a coma and hasn't played soccer in 6 months.
It is a little on the nose with the other report. And just like, it's LAFC is making the biggest splashes right now, but there's been like a lot of moves flying around. Remember we were talking about how Columbus, every time we look up, they've added like with the DeJuan Jones trade, but also they signed another guy today. So I understand like Seattle's rationale for not making moves is that they're up against the cap and there's not a lot of flexibility and stuff. But like, I'm sure someone who knows the stats and the math of the money behind it could explain it, but it's like how are all these other teams not quote unquote up against the cap? Like
it's because they're making outbound transfers as well. Like there's players on this roster that are sucking up so much cap space that like if they're not going to play, you have to move them. They need to move on. You need to find a way to make moves, and like there's just zero ambition, it seems, for any of that.
Maybe they're just not getting offers, but I don't know. At a certain point, like, if you could move a Leo Chu and then bring in someone new, that would inject some fresh energy.
They got an offer for Obed, not saying that it would be the best thing to do to move him, but like you have an offer for Obed, who that's a good bag. Maybe you move Leo Chu, and like not saying that that's exactly who I would want to move, but there are like actual real offers out there. Not saying they're exactly what you want, but you can negotiate. You can make moves. If you really cared about this season, if you really cared about like the Club World Cup, if you really were actually focusing on that, you would be making moves right now. You would be making really hard decisions. They're not doing that.
Yeah, it's a fair grievance, and I definitely understand the frustration. I mean, we'll be keeping tabs on all the other transfers and goings on, and I'll let Noah complain about it. I think we're good to call it a wrap there. I didn't have anything else unless you did.
No, I appreciate you all for listening.
Yeah, thank you all so much as always for tuning in, and like I said, for bearing with us on the timeline getting pushed back this week. We should be back on our normal schedule. And also apologies for not sourcing any questions this week. We'll get back on that routine as well. I was out of town, so I didn't have a chance to do that like I normally would. But
people got to stop getting married, Ari.
Yeah,
what's
I know,
going on
it's
with that?
Getting ridiculous. Like, comment, rate, subscribe, write us a review, sub to the YouTube.
Sub to the YouTube.
Support us at Lobbing, Scorchers, or at
sounderetheart.com/LS.
Until next time, we out.
Peace.